In this edition of Just Reviews, I'll be checking out the PC version of Metro 2033. What starts out as a pretty standard FPS quickly turns into something much more. This game has been compared to Fallout 3, and while I can see certain areas where this comparison holds true, I don't agree with comparing the game to Fallout 3 as a whole. While the story and creature types are somewhat similar, Metro gets bonus points for taking more liberties with the story, creatures, and their models. In this game, you get to fight everything from humans all the way to giant mutated fleshy organs, and almost everything in between. The story in this game is also quite excellent, and I actually found myself caring about what happens to some of my NPC allies. What makes Metro 2033 stand out even more is the fact that it's a segmented, story-based first-person shooter. What I mean by that is that each level is broken up into multiple parts, each consisting of either story, action, stealth, or town segments. The game world isn't open, and it fits the game pretty well. Since everything is level-based, it gave the team a chance to create a very believable world, which in my opinion is much better than the ones found in most other recent first-person shooters, and even some of the more recent RPGs, because this one actually feels real and seems alive. In the town segments, you see everything from little kids running around, playing tag, and drawing on the walls, all the way to people puking or even having sex. Now, while the hardcore stuff is never actually shown, it's still there in some form. The Metro itself also feels very lived in, at least the towns do, and the further you get away from civilization, the more desolate and lonely everything starts to feel. They nailed the atmosphere spot on in this game, and I can't say enough good things about it. Yes, there's some goofy voice acting that takes away from the experience, but overall everything feels just right. The stealth segments are good as well, with light and sound playing a key role in your ability to remain unseen. Although there isn't really enough stealth-based gameplay in here, and you can just brute force your way through everything if you so choose. Still, there are a few moments that really stood out, but eventually you will always be discovered. If you can remain unseen, the bad guys will take pause and check their surroundings, trying to see whether comrades are now dead, giving you a chance to kill them as well. Eventually, someone always sounds the alarm, no matter how careful you are, and everything left alive comes to get you. The action segments is where things break down a bit. There are a lot of really fun on-rails kart-based sequences, and I absolutely enjoyed most of them, as they feature quick-time events and a lot of cool gunfights, although they are a bit overused throughout the game. I also liked most of the defense segments, which consist of you surviving what seems like a never-ending horde of rampaging beasties, and when you're almost out of ammo and low on life, most come to a very satisfying conclusion. But the exploration get from point A to point B segments are really your standard FPS fare, and not that impressive at all. In fact, if it wasn't for the amazing atmosphere of almost every level, I would dismiss these get there while killing stuff in the way segments as fairly mediocre. Don't get me wrong, there are some really cool platforming sequences within these segments, but most just require you to get from one place to the next, where another segment is initiated. Next up are the story segments. These are really cool bursts of pure awesome and are at times interactive. The cool chase through town while being shot at from every direction comes to mind. Now, I won't give away too much, but I will say that the game's story has almost everything that it should, and the ending is both satisfactory and disappointing. While the game does feature multiple endings, the real ending is the one that most people will get on the first playthrough, and it's also the ending that I'm commenting on. My only real complaint about the story is that it's all over way too soon. Exploring everything and listening to all the side conversation resulted in me beating the game in about 12 hours. And this was on the hardest starting difficulty setting. Not short by any means, but not long either. If you were to just blitz through the story and play on the default difficulty, I think you'd be able to finish the game in 7 hours or so. Now, while that's still a lot better than some other games such as Modern Warfare 2, at least that game had multiplayer, and pretty good multiplayer at that. Metro 2033 gives you no such option. Once it's over, it's over. And while it's not too uncommon for a story-based FPS to not have a multiplayer mode, it is certainly a bit disappointing, especially in this case. Another thing that I didn't like about the game is the ammo trading system. Metro 2033 uses ammo as currency, and has vendors in most towns that will allow you to buy gear, weapons, and even exchange ammo. See, most of your guns use different ammunition, but it doesn't really matter because all ammo is so overabundant, even on the harder difficulties, that it never really becomes a problem, subtracting a lot from the game's already low difficulty, which I found pretty poor altogether. In fact, even on the hardest level, I had no problem beating the game with only 4 or 5 deaths. All in all, I would say that Metro 2033 is a great game and definitely deserves a look. The guns feel and handle well, sound real, and there are a few cool pumping weapons thrown in for good measure. If it wasn't for the game's short length and lack of multiplayer, I would score it much higher. But as it is, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. If you can rent it, do it now. Otherwise, wait until it can be purchased for $30 or less.